Well, if you're just joining me, it's about 6:57, and we are getting ready to start our weekly discussion here at Tea and Conversation. Yeah, it is me. Right now, it's just me and you. It is Trustee Adam Winston, also candidate for Bloom Township Committeeman. It has been a fun-filled week, let me tell you. Had an opportunity to get out there, walk the streets through the territory that I'm going to be in, see a lot of different candidates at a lot of different events. So we're going to be discussing some of those things, and we're just going to have a lighthearted meeting since I don't have a whole lot of a packed agenda as we go into this one more week before we get into that time where people can start early voting. Good evening, Ms. Dawkins. Mr. Decker, how are you?
Great.
Fantastic. Now, I thought that I don't know how much of this, how much of my conversation was actually heard. I call myself having my head, and that has proven not so well so far. What are you sitting out there on your deck?
I am. The kids are still up because they're out of school, and I figure for some peace and quiet, I just come outside and enjoy the beautiful evening.
Absolutely. And it is actually, I have to say that it's actually a pretty decent evening to be sitting out there. Miss Dawkins, welcome to Tea and Conversation. How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Are you sitting on your deck as well?
No, I'm doing some stuff inside. I had a contractor who said he was going to come by and do some work, but he was a no-show.
With that contractor, does he sound somewhat like me?
No comment.
Okay. Well, we won't comment on that.
I'm confident that Mr. Decker doesn't do his clients like that, though.
No, I don't. However, there have been over the years a couple that
just say no, Mr. Decker. No. When you make an appointment, you probably keep it. You show up on time. You probably show up early.
I'm the one that shows up 15 minutes early, but I always text and say I'm on my way. I'll be early, but don't worry, because usually I do my estimating before I do work. So I try to do them 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I say I get there early, but I won't knock on your door. Don't feel, rushed. If you see me parked in front of your house, if I said 7, I'm not knocking till 7. Just because I pull up doesn't mean you have to hurry up and finish your coffee and get dressed and all that, But
Mr. Decker, do you find yourself you being able to stick to the work order that you put together for your clients? Or?
I purposely keep my workload kind of light and spread out for that reason, because then other things happen. There's traffic. Somebody else wants a quick estimate, so I have time. I don't have to say. Absolutely. I hate saying no. I hate saying no to people, but I am. If you're not early, you're late.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's a heck of a practice. That is a heck of a practice. My truck broke down today, so I actually. I had to actually put my truck. I put it in the shop this morning because I knew something. You know how you know something's going wrong with your work truck, and
all the sound.
You said what? Yeah, the sound.
Every little sound.
Absolutely.
It's either a new sound, or sometimes it's a new smell. Or I don't know what kind of truck you got. Mine's an old beater. It's an old City of Chicago truck, 2003.
Yeah, well, mine's a 2006 Silverado. So anytime I hear a different sound, like you said, a different smell. I had already made the appointment, so I put it in the shop. I thought that it was just a power steering pump, and my hope was that they would just get there, they throw the power steering pump on, and then I would be out of there. Of course, in this day and age, nothing goes at any of these shops the way you want it. In fact, they still have the truck, so I didn't even get my truck back under this whole. We're going to get it done. Okay, the part didn't come in time. We won't have it done until tomorrow. And I can't drive it because it wasn't the power steering pump. It was actually the ball joints, which is worse, okay, because I can't turn a corner without the wheel falling off the truck. which would not be a good thing. Okay. So these things definitely happen, and you hope that all of your clients understand, especially when you've lived at their house over the past year, that they would understand. But in any event, welcome to Tea and Conversation. Mr. Decker, I did see you at, it's so interesting, the Republican event. How did that go?
It was a Republican event. I thought I did okay.
Okay.
I mean, that was my first. I guess that would be my first event like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, Mr. Decker, if you don't know, Brian Mullins is I mean, he and I sometimes like him, sometimes he's tough. But Brian Mullins is, is really, I really think he's a Republican. I think that that's what he is. And sometimes, and not that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, that we are what we are, right? So I want to put that out there because, I got flack from some people who thought that I was making fun of Jesse White. Wasn't making fun of Jesse White last week. For the record, anybody's looking at the show, I'm just concerned about endorsements coming from a candidate that does have some health hurdles ahead of them, and us exploiting people who have these health challenges in order to disguise it as an endorsement. That isn't making fun of a person. That's just speaking the truth about people with some of these illnesses. But in any event, Mr. Mullins, from what he sounds like every time that I hear him, Brian Mullins, because it's the Brutus and what is the name of that show? The Brutus and
Brian.
Brutus and Brian. Brian, I think Mullins is a and he's been around for some time. He's pretty controversial. Okay, he is not.
I actually had a couple people tell me, two, to be specific. Two people said, basically, this is some things. This is, and I said, I'm as green as the grass on your front lawn, so I'm just going to roll with it. And the back of my shirt says, no strings on me. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to get out here and I mean, how am I going to turn down exposure?
Right. And that's a good thing. So I did get a chance to look at the audience, and I saw, I mean, it looked like it was a fairly decent audience. A lot of them were candidates. And again, I mean, if you can survive Brian Mullins, you're going to be just fine, because he is not an individual who really he asked some real tough questions. He's not shy about his opinions about anything, and nor should he be. And you know what, and that's so interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and get into our topic. Today is the first Tuesday of the month. I mean, first Monday of the month. So we here in the Village of Glenwood, we normally have our board meeting on the first Tuesday of the month. So we got a loaded agenda. I did this weekend, Ms. Dawkins, have an opportunity to get over into Homewood. You guys had your artesian fair. I thought it was a pretty nice event. What is the word on the street before I get into my topics? It seems like everybody did a fair. Did you have an opportunity, Mr. Decker or Dawkins, to get over there and see the fair?
I was out of town, but I'm sorry, Mr. Decker, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I talk too much. I apologize. You go. I think he addressed you.
No, you're the candidate. You are the one who should be talking. I'm just a resident.
But Ms. Dawkins, you're a resident from that area, so that's one of the reasons why I targeted you.
You're always targeting me because you're trying to attack my beautiful home sweet Homewood. But you can't, because Home Sweet Homewood is the diamond of the South Suburbs.
Listen, I'm not attacking Homewood at all. I love Homewood. So believe me, I am a fan of Homewood, even though the mayor put his name on an endorsement card. I'm still a fan of his, right? And I'm not going to throw rocks at Hofield, who's never endorsed anyone. I'm not going to throw any rocks at him. I don't understand this endorsement But I'm not even going to get into that.
I have a question.
Yes.
You cannot get what you didn't ask for. Did you ask?
Ms. Dawkins?
Oh, silence.
Ms. Dawkins.
Silence. Moving on. So the Artisan Street Fair, from all accounts, was
a
wonderful event. Did you? Did you go and meet him during his office hours? Did you go introduce
he's
yourself
never
to him?
talked. He never talks.
Did you introduce yourself to him
Yes,
during his
I've
office
always
hours?
introduced myself to
No,
Mr.
during his
Hopefield.
office hours.
Very well,
President
Ms. Dawkins.
Hopefield has office hours every Saturday from 9 to 12. He's probably the only mayor in the south suburbs who does so.
That's
And
pretty
he
cool.
talks to everyone. He has an open forum. It's old school. And anyone can come and talk to him. Did you go to talk to him?
Very well, Ms. Dawkins. You are obviously, you already know, so I'll just say I have.
So the answer is no.
I did go and talk to him.
Did you go during the office hours? You didn't.
Oh, so if it didn't fall in that time frame, it didn't count?
Well, you didn't ask him for his endorsement, did you?
Ms. Dawkins, go ahead. Talk about beautiful
You asked me about the
Homewood.
Artisan Street Fair. The Artisan Street Fair, from all accounts, was wonderful. I was not there because I was out of town.
Okay.
But from all accounts, from everything that I've seen and heard, it was a wonderful event. And what I like about it is that it's really an opportunity for local artisans to showcase their goods, and for understand the 6022, which is like kind of a play on the zip code of Flossmoor. It was
they had their event too. Yes.
60422 is June 4th, and that's their zip code. Was a successful event as well. So it was just a nice weekend in the south suburbs.
Yeah, it was, and that was the focus. I really wanted to stay there because this weekend there were many
You
events.
You started attacking my home sweet homewood. I'm just giving you a hard time, so
Does your mayor have those office hours open to anybody or just residents?
Yes. Yeah, anyone.
Oh.
Everyone. I mean, anyone can go in there. There's all kinds of people. That's actually how I became when I was involved in village government. That's how I met him. I went in during office hours and I was serving on a committee and I had a concern about my committee and I went in and talked to him. And that's how I met him. Some 14 years ago.
I know a lot of mayors will basically listen to anybody. I mean, they might not have set office hours like that, which is cool, but I know there's a few that, it's very specifically said in bold print at the bottom, residents only.
No, he has people from all over come and talk to him.
That's very cool.
Well, that's good to know. So if you're listening out there in the cyberspace, the doors are open. As they would say at the Baptist church, the doors are wide open. Okay. And you can go and talk to that mayor over in Home Sweet Homewood. So Mr. Decker, I want to jump back over for a minute because I know that that you were over, like I said, and you were in some very treacherous waters, if I could say, with Brian. And how did that go? Tell me about your experience, because I've never been to one, and I tried to look at the thing, but I couldn't get through it all. So how did it go?
It was pretty long. Ultimately, I think it went great, other than they were a little ill prepared as far as they didn't have any time management. They just kind of wung it. So I felt bad. I felt bad for the sheriff's candidates. I figured they'd do the commissioner candidates last because we're just districts instead of the countywide positions. But I felt bad for the sheriffs because towards the end, he kind of like cut them off, and the library staff was literally escorting us out of the room. Like, you guys got to go, so, but other than that, I don't mean to criticize, because they had all the graphics up on the screen. I don't know if you caught that. They broke down the duties and responsibility of each office, what their budget was, a little bit of history on the office, and then they let us have our opening. They had a panel. I guess that was a great idea. The sponsors were able to ask the first question, so they were guaranteed time to ask because they're the ones sponsoring the event, which was great. And then, of course, answers questions from the audience. See, I, for the most part, have never. I mean, even yesterday, I don't consider that. A few people said, "Oh, you survived. You made it through the gauntlet," or you came in and I got a lot of positive feedback, which was very encouraging afterwards in the lobby, hanging out. And I've yet to. After the primaries, they're going to come at me.
Yeah. Well, right now,
So
and I'm glad you know, because right now you aren't in the crosshairs. Because everybody's trying to win that primaries. If you're the only libertarian, you're the only one in that particular party running for that
I
particular.
haven't seen. I know they're all Democrats, but usually even in the primaries, you get a little bit of words said or a little bit of negativity. But I haven't seen one bit of anything
Yeah.
negative towards any candidate, which is great. I think that's the way campaigns should be run. Run on yourself. You know, these people on social media and even in conversations, usually the people who speak the loudest negatively, don't want to actually sit down and have the real talk.
Right, because they don't have anything to say. And that's interesting that you say that, Mr. Decker, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about as well is that the number of people that they only want to excite their campaign by creating somewhat of a conflict, right? They want to create a you against them type of scenario as opposed to just running on their issues, right? And my hope is that we don't have to be enemies simply because we're running for our office. The truth of the matter is you think that I hope if you're running for office, you believe that you have a plan that would help the community that you're interested in serving. And I have a plan, if I'm just speaking from me, that I think will work and will help the community too. It should never get to a point where it's almost a personal thing, where a person has to become an enemy, it seems, in order to ignite the excitement of their campaign. I don't know where that came. And I think that I see that a lot. And maybe it's just because I'm in the Democratic space, but it just seems like a lot of the Democrats, it becomes this, I hate this person simply because they're running for the same seat. And I don't know how you do away with that, right? I don't know how you focus or not take it personal. Well, I know how I do it, but I don't know how anyone else does it. But I don't know why that seems to be, everything is so personal. Why? Like for when you're running against another candidate.
That's another level. I don't understand that when it gets personal or, I wasn't even running in our last mayoral election, but I was very outspoken against somebody who was running here who was, clearly not very well known. He just popped up out of nowhere, giving out free food and giving out free, it was like when the pandemic started, he was giving out masks, and he always said, I'm not running for anything, I'm just helping my community. And we're like, who are you? We don't even know who we are,
Right.
So
is he the mayor now?
Oh, no. But I simply brought about certain facts, not in an abrasive way. I mean, I'm sure he took it as abrasive and some of his supporters took it as being abrasive, but I was remaining unbiased and bringing information to my village and my people here in Midlothian of who the candidates are, all three of them.
Right.
Two of them are very well known. They got a lifelong history here. They've been on committees. They've done volunteer work. All the good stuff that you want to see that you're gonna get behind. And
you hope to see in a candidate.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, him and his little, social media. I mean, it became personal. I mean, my kids were brought into it. I'm like, I'm not even running,
Right.
But I do understand the negativity. Sometimes you want to highlight, why you don't want to hire this other person. I say hire because that's what, you run for office, you want to be hired. You're asking the people to hire you. But when it crosses that line of, when you said the word personal, to me, that's very rare, but that is very confusing of why anybody would support a candidate who gets personal with the other person.
Well, so I've been in campaign
policies. You want to talk about pasts and histories, and
right.
I'm sure mine's going to come out. I guarantee after the primary, my little skeleton's going to come out, and I could say, yep.
Well, do you want to go ahead and share those with it? You might as well just give them out, test it right here.
Well, I was actually kind of thinking about that because I've had 3 phone calls in the last 2 days about it.
Okay.
And I guess very briefly, back in 2010, 2011, I sold cannabis.
Okay.
In 2011, my house was raided by Chicago police, and I went to jail for possession with intent to distribute cannabis. It was just over the felony limit, so it was a felony. Okay. I spent the night in Cook County Jail. So I have personal experience with the jail system, and it's definitely, it's a deterrent. So it was for me anyway.
So how has that experience shaped you? And I thank you for sharing that. But how has that experience shaped you and made you, or in your opinion, more relatable to the people that you may be representing?
Well, sadly, I think there's a lot of people in my district who have also spent time in Cook County Jail for a non-violent drug offense. Mm-hmm. And that's one of my things I've been discussing lately is the failed war on drugs, and not just because I feel that I was unfair. We may not agree with the law, but we are burdened by it.
Yes.
I made a choice. I was caught making that poor choice, and I answered the door with my hands out. Here you go, because I did something wrong. So it was definitely a learning experience. It wasn't a fun experience. It wasn't something I enjoyed, but it definitely humbled me a little bit, and kind of, I was just, I made a poor choice,
Right.
And luckily, it wasn't, I didn't have any, they came in assuming I had guns and all kinds of like plants, and whoever gave them my information was very misleading, put it that way, because they were very upset that
Right.
I had a very minuscule amount compared to what they were told. And I got off probation 7 months early because I was, I was doing everything like I was supposed to do. I got a letter from my probation officer. My lawyer wrote a very, very great letter to the judge, and the judge granted me early dismissal. And now this July, over the last year, I've been going and doing all the legwork myself because I don't have money for a lawyer, but I filed for clemency with the Illinois Parole Board. So not expungement, not sealing. I want clemency. I want taken off,
Yeah.
Not to hide from it, or I've never hidden this from anybody.
Right.
Okay, I've never went out of my way to hide it or lie. But thank you for the opportunity, because it's been on my mind the last few days, because people have brought that up, that hey, when the primary's over, they're coming.
Well, but do you think, and again, Mr. Decker, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that. Do you think, and honestly, and I'm biased, okay? I actually like you, okay? So I'm biased. So, but
you like me?
I actually do. I think that if I was, oh yeah, Pride Day was yesterday. You're the cat's meow. So I actually think that you're not. I honest to God, I think that if your only hurdle as a candidate, my one personal opinion, and you know what that is, right? It's that does not stands for loser. It stands for libertarian. Okay, and I think that. That's the hurdle, and that's if you can build a coalition. I think that I think you're a fantastic candidate. I just think that you're in Cook County, and I don't know how the residents are going to warm up. But I guess I want to go back to what happened to you in the past. So my thoughts are with the individuals who may try to reach and pull that out. I don't know if that actually holds any weight. You got a mayor over in a community that does have a felon, and somehow I don't even know how he continues to get sworn in. I mean, when the book clearly states that if you have a felon for a local municipalities, I don't even think having a felony as a commissioner even.
In Illinois, you cannot run for school board, park district, library. You can't run for local office.
For locals with a felony.
With a felony, yes. without clemency.
Yes.
It can't be expunged. It can't be sealed. You have to seek clemency. If you're talking about who I think you're talking about, the difference with his is mine was with the state of Illinois. That particular felony that you're discussing was a federal felony.
Right. So it only can be expunged by the federal government.
Right, and that was the objection or the issue that came up. I mean, personally, I don't care. I mean, that's my neighbor,
Yeah.
I mean,
well, but I guess and I like him. I don't have any qualms with him. But I guess my point for bringing this up is that what got you in trouble is not following the law, right? And then you're going to continue to not follow the law by running for office, which is how you ended up in trouble in the first place. You get what I'm saying? And I think that you can't say that you can't say I'm a legislator. I'm sworn to do all of the things that I'm gonna need to do legally, but you're doing actions that fall against the legal steps to fixing it. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like, well, I'm going to rob this bank, but I'm going to use the money to help the homeless. Does that give me a pass?
That's kind of like apples and oranges, but I mean, I get what you're saying. It's you know.
Well, how is it apples to oranges? If you're breaking the law to get yourself on the ballot, what's the difference between breaking the law to get yourself on the ballot and breaking the law for your own personal benefit? It's still your own personal benefit.
I just find your example of robbing a bank to be a little,
I'm Robin Hood, Mr. Decker. I'm Robin Hood.
Hey, you know what? What do they say? One person's vigilante is another person's criminal, or however that goes. You know,
absolutely.
It depends on what side you're on, right? But ultimately, like I said earlier, we may not agree with the law, but we are burdened by it.
Regardless, that's my point. We are burdened by it. I don't think I've always been, so like you, I've run into Ms. Dawkins. Hopefully you're listening, but I've run into problems with the system too. Mine not as severe. I got pulled over for driving on a suspended license. Right, my mother, when I was a young lad, she pulled her name off of my driver's license, and then I got pulled over and I got a ticket. I got several tickets, to be honest with you, for driving with a suspended license, because once your mother, or once you get emancipated, their name falls off your driver's license. So I never corrected that. So I ended up racking up some tickets. But I remember my sister saying something to me, Adam, in order to fix you got to play by the rules in order to change the rules, right? You got to first play by the rules if you're going to change them. You can't change them from the outside in, because then you start looking like a madman, right? So you have to find ways. You have to find ways to play within the system, and then you can speak directly towards how the system is disenfranchising the system. So my thoughts are, if you're going to run for office, and it clearly states that in order to run for office, it clearly states that in order to run for office, you have to be, you can't have any felonies. I have this book. I was looking at this today. And if you don't have one of these, Jasons, then let me know, okay? But this book right here, tells me a lot of things that even I was disenfranchised with. When the very first time I ran for office, I was kicked off of the ballot for not following. And you know what? I've been kicked off of the ballot for so many different things. It's just at this particular point, I feel like I'm an expert. I'm an expert when it comes to getting kicked off the ballot. But at the time that I first ran, the very first time, I was kicked off of the ballot for a thing called conformity rule. Have you ever heard of this? Anybody ever heard of this? Okay. Well, conformity rule is a rule where the clerk in a municipality can say, I don't understand enough about this person's petitions. There's not enough to certify them on the ballot. So we're not going to even accept their petitions at all. Have you ever heard of this? We're not even going to accept their petitions at all because there's not enough information about this candidate in order to accept their petition.
I haven't heard of it, but it makes sense. I've heard of situations like that where, I mean, that's why when I turned in my petitions, I was like, I spent 4 days just making sure everything was perfect. I mean, down to the binding. I asked 7 different people about binding because I know I've heard and seen hearings where literally they argued about the type of binding that was used, whether it was secure or not. And to me, that's just objecting to object.
Yeah. Well. So what I read today about the conformity rules. The conformity rule is not something that's generally used ever. Right now, I was kicked off of the ballot, and again, I was just reading this because I'm one of those, right, Jason? I was just reading to try to get some clarity about some of the things. So I'm reading this, and the conformity rule if your ballot, if your petition, it doesn't mean that if you're missing the statement of economic interest, that has nothing to do with conformity rule. It doesn't mean if if your petitions aren't bound the proper way, that you should be removed from the ballot. So it has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with your petitions are so grossly just jacked up where you can't understand anything about the person. Who is this person? Because I don't have anything that tracks that person. Then the clerk, and this is local, right? Then the clerk can say, well, this petition doesn't follow the conformity rules, and we don't know who they are, so we're just not going to touch this ballot. Well, that rule is seldom used, and yet it was used on me when I ran for office the very first time. And it wasn't. This was almost 12 years ago, Mr. Decker, and it wasn't until today, 12 years ago, that I realized that they inappropriately used the rule, against me. Which when you don't know, now you know, right?
Well, now you're in, right? I mean, you're in.
I am in, and I'm still learning, right? When I ran for mayor a year or so ago, and then I was actually certified on the ballot, only to later be kicked off. I'm saying all of this because we were just talking about playing by the rules. You can't break the law and then be a lawmaker, and that's my critique of that particular situation. Breaking the rules is what got you in the predicament. That's my point. And then you're gonna break the rules further by using that to get yourself on the ballot. I think that's a gross misconduct, and I don't understand how that happens. That's what I'm saying. So rather it's Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give to the poor. It says specifically in the book, that's one of the things. It says specifically in the book that if you have a felon running for municipal law, running for local elections, you really can't do it. And the only reason that law is there, from what I understand, is because it's just not enough. There's not enough people that pay attention to local small races.
Well, from what I read years ago, it was because they say that on the local level is where corruption is mostly, that's where Absolutely. Your highest temptation of corruption is on the local level. So I get, but I mean, see, I know on local offices where felons held seats, and in doing a little research, it was simply because they weren't objected, and technically, and I don't know exactly how I'm not a lawyer, but technically the law states that you cannot be sworn in. So it's not necessarily the candidate or the office holder, it's whoever swore that person in, usually a village clerk or whatever person did the swearing in. But again, it comes down to objections. If you run, you win, and throughout that process nobody files some sort of paperwork or objection against it, then you move forward,
Right. Well, so let's ask the question, and this is for those people that are listening out there in the Facebook world too. Is the process flawed? Right. And I'm begging the question. And now, Jason, before you go there, because I know most people will say yes, right? But before you say yes, it's like the people who say the laws are flawed, or the Constitution is horrible, but they don't have an alternative. So before we say yes, please verify or at least have an explanation for your reasons why. Is the current way that we run for office? I hear all of this stuff about campaign reform, finance reform. I hear all of these different things. What is the answer? Okay, is the answer just giving anybody that runs for office $50,000 to run for office? Is that the answer?
Say that again, 50,000.
Or just, I'm saying 50,000. I'm using that number, but just, so that you wouldn't have the finance component, right? If we just gave candidates, you sign up, you run for office, you get certified on the ballot. Here is your 20 grand. This is what you have to use in order to run for office. Is that the answer?
Where does that 20 grand come from?
I don't know. I get that those are things that we would have to think about. But I'm just going to say, if that was the system, okay. So we are not going into that, because that's a whole nother layer. Because you're right, you would have to fund it. But people are talking about that we need finance reform, right, for campaign reform. If you were a candidate, you were running for office, and they just gave you money to run for office, does that solve all of the competitions, the challenging of petitions? Does that do away with all of that?
Not for fundraising. I'm actually, I mean, everything needs a little reform. I think we can all agree there. Everything needs to be reworked. We can have these conversations all night about what makes sense and what doesn't. Sadly, when it comes to the authorities and the people who have the power to change it, they either tell you it's too complicated, or we don't have the time, or there's a whole list of excuses of why things aren't changed. But when it comes to the finance part, I think most of it's pretty good. I like knowing where candidates' money is coming from. I like knowing where they're spending it. That was part of one of my hurdles when I started the campaign, was finding a treasurer who would be willing and able to, officially join my team, help me out. Definitely not something, I know some candidates do it themselves, but it was one thing I know campaign finance is what they get you for. That's what you go to jail for.
Yeah.
So
especially when you're but even there's a flaw in that. And so here's my criticism of that. We aren't, many of us, especially at local levels, at local municipalities, most of these places, I don't know what they make in Olympia Fields. I don't know what they made in Homewood. I know what they make in Glenwood, right, as a trustee. And it's something like $600 a month, right? So you get this little bit of money. They don't even consider you full-time. They consider you part-time. You definitely have to do all of your D2s and all this other stuff, but you never really gather so much money in your coffers like you're, running for Secretary of State or for the commissioner seat, Mr. Decker. You never raise that type of money, because really it's such a small window. Your money really is really your sweat equity, right? The amount of work that you put in, talking to people and so on and so forth. And yet you find many of these people like myself, you get into these issues because it's every 3 months that you file this form, right? And then you get caught up because we don't have secretaries. We don't even have offices at the village hall, right? You forget, then they hit you with this absolutely just absorbent, ridiculous fine, which now puts you in further a jeopardy of running for office in the future, and so on and so forth. I don't know, right? I don't know if all of those things, I do know those things need to be relooked at, right? Because the reality is, a trustee in the village of Olympia Fields making $500, right? The mayor making $100. I mean, $1,000. That is insane. And the amount of effort and work that they put you in to hold you compliant. And I guess we may be splitting hairs here. It's really insane the amount that they actually put you through, and the amount of fines you can rack up. And that should never, the fined amount should never exceed the amount that your committee has ever raised. It shouldn't do that. And it does.
I don't agree with the fines. I think, well, I mean, if you're non-compliant for X amount of months or weeks or whatever it is, but I've actually found myself and my treasurer, I mean, the state is extremely forgiving, and they're very helpful, and
the state or the election board.
The who we deal with down in Springfield for the finance, basically, the election board. Now it's raining out here. Hang on.
Okay.
But ultimately, like some villages do. Everybody calls villages money grabbers. They just want fines. They give you a ticket for leaving your garbage can out a day too long, or your grass is too long. A lot of people don't realize, at least here in Midlothian and the neighboring communities, I know for a fact that they don't want fines. They want compliance. They just want you to do it the right way. So if you make a mistake, it shouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, because we're all human and prone to error. Even the best treasurers, the best bookkeepers make mistakes. Now, if it was a purpose, if there was reason to believe that the mistake was on purpose for whatever reason, then there should be consequences. But when you said fines, when you were fined for not doing it the right way. I don't agree.
Or
with that.
it's fine for being late. So it's really if you're late with your filing, and I get it.
Oh,
I know
if
why.
you're not early, you're late. If you're not early, you're late, Adam.
I understand, and in the real and in the I get it. Okay, you and Barbara Dawkins having a moment here, but what my point is, if the fine exceeds, and to me the fines exceed much more than what the individual even has in their coffers, right? And the fines are generally paid by those individuals that are donating to a campaign. So you're really not penalizing the candidate. You're right, because ultimately what ends up happening is that fine is absorbed by those donors to that person's campaign. So my criticism of it is there just has to be a better way on how we force people in compliance when it comes to campaigns. Now, speaking of money, and I'm gonna pivot just for a minute, and I gotta go over here to Trustee Matz. Hopefully she's able to talk. Joe Biden, and I'm gonna bust his chops just a little bit. Joe Biden signed a $40 billion aid package to Ukraine. What are we? What is everybody's thoughts? Okay, and now listen. Here is my criticism of that before anybody, Trustee Matz, gets into this. And Mr. Decker, I'd love to hear your opinion. But we've been over here asking people, asking for school debt relief and all this other stuff. And everybody's like, no. But then we signed a $40 billion aid package. Okay, and I'm not saying that they don't need the help. But when do we focus on us? Timothy Campbell, welcome to Tea and Conversation.
Yes, thank you, Trustee. So I really think that that's a bad thing. I really can't agree with him signing a package that is worth so much money, especially when we have gas prices here in the United States that are touching $6 a gallon. That is crazy.
Absolutely insane.
You know, I can't agree with it. I really can't agree with that. Me and you talked in the past, and you shared some things with me about the history on Ukraine and their total disrespect and harassment and abuse towards. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think
African
it was
countries, people
yes.
who have darker skin. I mean,
yes.
I'm just thinking, this whose money, right? Whose money? I'm an American, Jason. I am American, right? We are Americans, and all of the money that goes into this pool of aid that we give comes from white people, black people, Mexican. It comes from all of us, right? And I'm really, it just boggles my mind that we can put together a package, a $40 billion aid package. And again, I'm praying for Ukraine. Okay, I am. But I am also praying for the United States. OMG. When do we, and this is the one criticism. This is my one, well, it's not my criticism. This is my one thing that I totally agreed with. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it here with the Mr. Trumpster, right? That it seemed like his focus was more on America. And are we missing that focus? Mr. Decker, what do you say?
Are you a Republican, Adam?
No, no, I'm not. Okay.
No, I kind of agree with you. At least, I didn't really care for him much at all, to be honest with you.
No.
But at the same time, yeah, it does seem, sadly, I mean, like everybody says, it's what we're told, it's what we're shown on social media, news media, even radio shows. Everybody claims to be unbiased, but everybody's got their bias, and they pick and choose what information we get because we don't have time to take in all the information, right? But back to your original question, I don't really agree with our current state. Not just gas prices, but everything else we got going on. I mean, what happened to baby formula? Are kids still looking for baby formula? Because I haven't heard
we brought some of that over. Hey, we brought some of that over from China. Okay, so the kid's gonna have lead paint in their baby formula. Let me stop. Go ahead.
So the other people who support it, make a good point that it kind of keeps our troops safe. We don't have to get involved as long as we're helping, prevent further escalation. But at the same time, like both of you guys just said, or you guys had a conversation about, their treatment of people. You know what I mean? It'd be like if your neighbor, pardon my language here, but if your neighbor was an asshole to everybody on the block, but you still helped him out and mowed his lawn for him and went to the grocery store for him or sat out on his front porch with him, a couple nights a week, or people are going to look at, so when we're giving that aid to a country who does, I mean, we do things to our people here too, but not on that scale, not on that level. So, ultimately the answer is no. I don't agree with that. That's all.
Yeah,
that's a lot of our money. That's our money.
Yes, and it's money that many of us, many of these communities, listen, with this COVID thing, you got the restaurant industry that's suffering. You got supply chain issues throughout the U.S. You got infrastructure that, you know how many times I've seen a truck getting stuck up under the Flossmoor Bridge over there. None of this makes sense. It doesn't make sense where we can just I get on an airplane. Let me just do this, okay? I get on an airplane, and when I on an airplane, Mr. Decker, Trustee Matz, they say before I save somebody else, what am I supposed to do? I got to put on my own damn mask. When are we gonna put on our own mask before we start helping somebody else? And I guess that's my criticism of this $40 support package. You got people over here. Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
No, it was just a correction. $40 billion.
40 billion. We got people over here that could use a fraction of that. I don't even know if you would have to even spend 40 billion to get most of the people in this country out of whatever predicaments they are. But then it seems like it's easier to give the money to other people than it is to help your people. What world are we living in? It's just unbelievable. The amount of it's so easy. They'll vote on it. And this is why I could never be a Republican. They'll vote on a Ukraine package with the quickness. But then American people, we get what? Back and forth about giving people student loan relief. This is just unbelievable. You couldn't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not a Republican. I told you before. When we had that little interview the other day, I'm a Democrat. I'm a conservative Democrat. I don't feel like you can tax your way out of every issue. And I feel like you got to take care of home. I feel like you do need social programs. I'm not anti-social program. I believe that social programs are what this country was built on. But I think that we have to start focusing on what our needs are in this country. And really, you got people still, my Wi-Fi, I've been working back from the house the last couple of days and my Wi-Fi keeps going in and out. We need stuff here. I'm so sick of going through Midlothian and all these different places where I can't even get down the street because of the trains, right? And we can't even get the emergency vehicles across Halstead unless you got 20 hours to sit there. And then we're sending a $40 billion. And on top of that, if you spent the money right here, right, doesn't that employ people? It gives people jobs, which now they can buy better houses. It helps the local industry, yada, yada, yada. At what point do we start saving ourselves? And that is my question. Mr. Decker, when you become the commissioner, I've been listening to these commercials over the weekend. I was at a place and I'm listening to President Pretwinkle talk about all of the things that she did as the president in Cook County. And I'm thinking, like, what are some programs you're thinking about here in Cook County?
Well, obviously, we all agree mental health.
Because everybody says healthcare and mental health. We know that's an issue.
It's not just healthcare. It's mental health. And it doesn't, I mean, we have a very limited amount of psychiatrists, actual psychiatrists on the county level for the county, the Cook County health system. But we don't, I mean, it'd be nice to have more, but I mean, just counselors. I mean, I know people, there's volunteers out there that'll just lend an ear and talk to people. I think that's where we start out.
Yes.
I don't, not just as a libertarian, but we need to figure out without giving people a bill. You know, I definitely, we already pay enough taxes on every level, whether it's sales tax, property tax, whatever you want to say. We need to figure out where we could move money around, because as some very intelligent people agree with me that there's money there. There's a lot of money that's being wasted, that's being just, it's not their money, right? It's not your money. So we can just, you know, we kind of play around with it. Not that they're not wanting to do good things for us, but at the same time, we are, the Southland is ridiculously overtaxed.
Yeah. Well, you know where I'd like to see some of that money, Jason? I'd like to see signs on the bridges. Now, is that too much to ask for? When I see a truck,
so the trucks don't get stuck.
So they don't get stuck. I
got one better.
I'm so sick of. Go ahead.
I got one better, Adam. We put 4x4 posts in the ground and run a plastic PVC across about 20 feet before the bridge.
Yeah.
And we just run it across. So not just a sign, because these truck drivers, sometimes they just follow their GPS.
That's it.
You know,
we can't even put a stupid sign on top of a bridge. We can't even cut that. You know, I'm looking at, what is that, 100? If this is your area, you may as well get used to it, Mr. Decker. But if I'm riding through all day, what is that, 130th towards Halstead over there, there's another bridge. There's another bridge where you got to make the little turn to get over on Michigan, get on, it's over there by the Metro train. I don't know what that street is, right? But you make that little turn to get on 130th, right? And there's a bridge right there. Yesterday, I saw a young man. He had to get out the car. So I thank God this truck driver had two people in the car. So the guy in the passenger side got out so that he can look to see if the top of the truck was going to be too tall, because there's no sign on the bridge. Not only is that an issue, but then let's say he was too tall. Now that's because this is what my thinking was. I'm behind him. How does he get out of there? There is just no, it's like we got crazy people running the asylum. They don't cut the grass. I'm looking at the number of people that stick their political signs. The grass is up to here, and they got their stupid political sign in. Who votes for a person who doesn't have the mindset to not stick the trash in the garbage?
Because it's not them putting the sign there, it's their volunteers.
They need to fire them. I would never vote for a candidate whose sign is in the midst of a bunch of garbage. You couldn't clean the corner up when you stuck the sign there, and you talking about you're going to do public service? You're kind of telling us what kind of public servant you're going to be, okay?
That's why I'm proud. I'm very proud. If anybody follows my Facebook group, my campaign page, I say it. I've said it a few times over the last week because I got a lot of signs up lately. I personally place every single one of my signs. So if you ever see one of my nice, beautiful yellow signs with black letters on it that says Decker, I put it there myself, not a volunteer, not my wife, not somebody I'm paying. It's me. And I am personally talking to the property owner, getting permission and support. I give them 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, however long they want to talk. I give them one of my flyers. We talk about, issues, whatever they want. Sometimes it's very quick and they just say, yeah, go the hell ahead. I don't care. Go ahead. But I get permission and I'm, we're supposed to be humble, but that's one thing I'm proud to say is that if you see one of my signs, I put it there with permission and support from the property owner. Because I don't have money to waste. Not that I would do it, but these candidates putting their, trains. Speaking of trains, candidates that just, willy-nilly put, 50 signs on 2 blocks up the middle of a parkway that they know are just going to get taken and pulled up. I don't have money like that.
Yes.
I can't afford to lose 20 signs. I mean, I've lost 4. People have stolen 4 of my signs. I go back and put another one up. And that hurts because I mean, my donations are like $25, $50, $100. Couple people gave me a couple hundred, but I mean, signs aren't cheap, especially when you don't have the money to buy 500 of them at a time.
Mr. Decker, you may not want to put that out there. Your candidate, your opponents may be like, he can't get us. Okay.
Hey, I'm hoping hard work and perseverance will outdo money.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing, Mr. Decker, I wanted to talk about, okay, because mental health. So when I heard Madam President, Cook County Board President, talking about healthcare, right, and mental health, is this now the new buzzword, right? So you got this heated county commissioner seat, right, which seems to be the thing, and the board president is running on that same thing. And is mental health the real issue here? Are we giving just sick people a prosthetic by saying they have mental health issues?
No, I think we all agree that we all could use somebody to talk to, and we may not all be crazy or diagnosed with some sort of disorder or condition, but sometimes with people that escalates and snowballs. And I as I said before, this violence and shooting and killing. I mean, besides the black market of the drug trade here in the Southland and all of Cook County, fueling that, it comes down to a lack of empathy. And that comes from not just teaching empathy, because it's not really something you can teach. It's something you have to show, and you can say, oh, well, we need to raise better kids and parents need to do better. Listen, I'm a parent. I'm doing the best I can. But there's a great book my wife turned me on to before my first son was born. It's called A Million Ways to Screw Up Your Kid.
Yes.
It essentially says that you are not going to be a perfect parent. You are going to make mistakes. Your kids are going to make mistakes. There's kids that are raised in a great home with great support and great encouragement and love. And yet when they turn 15, 16, 17, they're sneaking out, getting drunk, using drugs, doing graffiti or whatever it is.
Well, Jason, you just described most of the kids, including some of us on this online right now. When we were kids, listen, I used to sneak beer, sit out there on the top of the roof, drink my father's beer, and smoke his cigarettes. Hell, I did it, right? I just didn't get caught.
Yeah. But that's my point, is that when the finger's pointed back at us, at the parents, I kind of take offense to that, because I can't guarantee my two boys are going to be law-abiding citizens their entire life.
Yes.
And that's going to be my fault. Well, I guess at the bare root, maybe it is as a parent, but at the same time, kids reach an age where they're free and they do what they want to do, and you can lock your kid down. You can, you get criticisms from, these teenagers who got caught up in some stuff at 1 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing people say is, what were they doing out at 1 o'clock in the morning? Where are the parents? Well, I know you're not really asking for information. You're criticizing the parenting as kind of like, that's how I take it anyway, is like it's a jump to conclusions that it's the parent's fault. Well, who knows? Maybe that parent was out looking for their kid.
Yeah.
Maybe that kid stole the car keys off the dining room table, went out joyriding, and the parents at home sleeping. They don't know.
Absolutely.
They assume their kid's good. Now, if there's signs and you get in some trouble, then yeah, you need to work on that. But ultimately, the mental health, lack of empathy, it's very much needed. How it exactly looks, how it can be put into play, or how we can have better mental health services is not with anything, not to sound like a politician, but it's not a magic wand that gets waved and all of a sudden we have 16 mental health clinics in the south suburbs. It's we have to work on it. Again, I don't want to, tack on any more taxes on anybody. Yeah. I want to figure out logical solutions, volunteers, community engagement, working together. What we all want, what we all say we want to do is work together. But when it comes down to it, very few people want to put their feet on the ground and put feet on it,
Absolutely.
But no, it is needed by far. Mental health. That's probably the number one thing we're lacking. We're also lacking common sense when it comes to certain policies and things in place. Like, I just read earlier today, one of these guys that shot the guy that shot the cop.
Yeah.
He was let out back in like 2018 or 2019 or something because for whatever reason. And I know right now somebody's sitting in that jail for simply possessing drugs. I know it. But yet you let this guy out who's a violent criminal who caused bodily harm.
And why do you think that? What was the difference? Like, why is that? Because it seems like, I mean, is it just a slip through? I mean, why is that?
I'd have to really look into it, but I'm a firm believer that nobody should be sitting in Cook County Jail for possessing drugs. Yeah. I don't think the courts need to be. And I went to the town hall out in Chicago Heights, and I asked Tony. I wore this shirt, and I stood up and asked her, and I said, she had said that drug use is a public health crisis. So I asked her, if drug use is a public health crisis, then why are we still treating it as a criminal crisis? Why are we still wasting time in court? Why are we still wasting resources at the jail and these judges and prosecutors?
And what was her response?
According to her, they've reduced population in Cook County Jail, which based on nonviolent drug offenders and minor offenses like shoplifting. I haven't really verified that, but somebody did say, well, yeah, Cook County Jail does have a less population now, but that's because of COVID. They were letting people out because of COVID. So I don't know. I mean, I just know for a fact that there's at least one person in Cook County Jail right now for simply possessing a drug.
So I remember when, and I don't know if anybody wants to take this, but I remember when Kim Foxx made it, you can I guess shoplift up to $1,000. It used to be it was a felony if it was $500. She made it where you could, if you stole up to, I guess, 1,000 now, it is not considered a felony. Do you think that was a good idea? If anybody, I don't care who you are out there, Mr. Decker, you've been engaging me, and I appreciate that. But I don't know if anybody, Ms. Dawkins or Trustee Matt, do you guys feel that was the incorrect thing to do? Okay. What about you, Mr. Decker? Do you think that making it $1,000 was the smart thing to do when it comes to shoplifting? Has that increased the number of people that are actually stealing at these stores and stealing people's stuff where they know that, okay, I can steal up to $1,000 before it's a felony?
I can assume so. I mean, people in that situation, whether you're just a kid who doesn't know any better or you're desperate for food or money, you're gonna steal something that's $600 out of Target or no. I do like the one story though, not to deflect from answering your question, but I think it was in New York where they did something similar, and so the guy who ran the convenience store, kids and people were running in, grabbing stuff, running out, and the police wouldn't even investigate. It wasn't about not prosecuting, it's the police knowing that they wouldn't prosecute, wouldn't care. So what he did was he priced everything at $1,000 each, whether it was a candy bar or a 2 liter of pop or a bag of chips. And then at the register, he had coupons, so then that way he could justify he stole, $1,000 worth. Now, I don't know how that played out in the long run, but I remember reading that. I thought it was pretty amusing and clever of him to adapt, because as a small business owner, brick and mortar, which, I mean, they're few and far between now, other than convenience stores, gas stations, and then the big box stores. But I can't imagine losing product and then just being out.
And $1,000 worth of product for a small business is quite a bit. I mean, that is quite a bit of merchandise for a small business to lose. And then the guilty person is not even charged with, it's almost a slap on the wrist. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Here's my thought is that belonged to somebody else and you took it. So there needs to be a consequence.
Absolutely. Well, if you're just joining, this has been a good little light show today with Trustee Adam Winston and Mr. Jason Decker, who is a candidate running as a Libertarian for Cook County Commissioner in the 5th District. It is about 8 o'clock right now. Any closing remarks from you, Mr. Decker?
No, just if anybody's interested in helping or you know, you don't have to donate money. You don't have to give me a lot of time. You don't have to knock on doors for me, but my phone number is out there, 708-913-8300. You know, I'm always open to have conversations, take advice, take guidance. I'm always looking for events. I got my eyes open, a few people, you know, just local events that are going on, just so I can go and, you know, not show up and take pictures and smile, but so I can actually meet people and, you know, wear my shirt. And surprisingly, people are starting to know who I am when I show up to a few of these things, which is good. But ultimately just, you know, yeah, it's as you said, I got a very, very hard uphill battle here, especially once you know, June 29th hits, it's going to be go time. So
absolutely. Well, you're going to be just fine. You've been a champ, and I think that all of this is priming you. So you should just be just fine. Trustee Matz, any closing words?
Real quick, Adam, thank you for the opportunity to be on these shows and talk, and you give me the airtime and the ability to reach people, and I thank you for that. So
listen, this is what it's about. The reality is, if you can become more fluid, okay, then you never can be ambushed. I'm never worried about somebody boxing me out or boxing me in, because I know the issues, right? And as long as you are skilled in your craft, right, and you know what you're talking about, you don't even have to worry about it. Trustee Matz, any closing remarks?
Teamwork makes the dream work.
We also, Trustee Matz, hopefully, she didn't touch on this, but this Wednesday is the first Wednesday of the month. It will be the flat property tax session.
It's not the first Wednesday of the month. Last week was the first Wednesday of the month. It's not this week. It's next week.
Last Wednesday was
last week was June 1st. Last Wednesday. Remember, you had a baseball game.
That's right. I totally forgot. Oh my word! In any event, so the flat property tax will be next week. I'm lost track of time because I am coaching the kids. Baseball, which has been a tough season. I probably should have just went to the flat property tax thing because of the way they're playing. I probably would have had more fun than to watch the demise of my little league baseball team. But in any event, the flat property tax will be next week. Tomorrow, however, there will be a meeting in the village of Glenwood, a trustee meeting, and I will be in attendance. Please take a look at that agenda. I was threatened. Before I go, so here we go. Okay, so somebody may ask this particular question, but I was, I'm going to put it out there. But yes, on the agenda tomorrow, there is talk about a property that I asked about. I did a FOIA request. Actually, before I did the FOIA request, which I'm an elected official in the village of Glenwood, I shouldn't have to do a FOIA request, but I asked about a piece of property that is located in the village of Glenwood that the village never agreed, the trustees never agreed to sell. However, I later uncovered that we sold that piece of property without the board's approval. When I made some inquiries about that particular property, I was met with much resistance from some of the directors in the village of Glenwood, to the point where one of them said, "I'm sick of this crap. If you don't get them, Mr. Mayor, I will." Wait a minute, I'm the elected official. I don't understand how a director can speak directly to a person, and he did it in writing and inadvertently. So he made a mistake and sent me that email. Well, in any event, tomorrow on the agenda, that piece of property that I inquired about that was illegally sold without the board's approval is now, they want to ratify it tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting. They still haven't given me the FOIA request that I asked, and they want to ratify an illegal sale. You couldn't make this crap up, okay, here in the fine village of Glenwood. Ms. Dawkins, any closing words? Mr. Campbell, any closing words?
No closing words.
Okay.
Have a good week, everyone.
Mr. Campbell, go ahead with you got 2 minutes.
I don't have any closing words. I just wanted to say good night and be safe to everyone. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Campbell, you sound like a grown man tonight. And thank you very much. Mr. Decker, as always, my pleasure. I will see you next Wednesday. We do have some special guests on next Monday. So I look forward to those candid conversations with them. Until then, have a good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for listening to me ramble.